I recently posted a bunch of my thumbnails to a subreddit for small YouTubers, and I got some pretty good feedback, as well as a couple people asking me what my process was. So I use Photoshop to make my thumbnails, but if you don't have Photoshop, since I know everybody can't afford it, don't worry. You'll still be able to get something out this video, because I'm just going to talk more broadly about my process. Now I'm going to try and keep this video as short as possible, so if you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment down below, or find me on twitch.tv/TartTizzle, where I stream from 7 to 9 p.m. every single night. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is create a project that is the right dimensions, which is 1280 by 720. If you ever forget those pixels, you can always just look it up on Google and find it there. So once you have your project created, you're going to bring in the photo that you took. I take a bunch of photos at once and then choose which one I like best. I chose this one because I have my finger pointing, and I didn't do that in any of my other poses. I like the finger here because then I don't have to use an arrow. I still don't even know what I'm going to be pointing to. We're going to figure that out together. Now, the handy thing about Photoshop is that there's this little select subject function, which is super easy. But no matter what photo editor you use, there will be a way to select out the person. You can find any number of tutorials teaching you how to select subjects out of photos, no matter what program you use. So just find a way that works best for you, and I'm going to fast forward to when I already got myself cut out. So I got myself all cut out here. It's obviously not perfect, but thumbnails are seen so small most of the time, so it's not really the end of the world if your edges aren't perfect. They just need to be good enough. So the next thing I'm going to do is flip myself around, and the reason that I'm flipping myself around is because I like to be on the right side because the viewer's eye generally looks left first. You can see this on talk shows a lot, how the talk show host is always on the right because then the viewer is looking at the celebrity and not the talk show host. So if you're making a thumbnail, it's really important to know what the title of your video is going to be, or loosely what it's going to be, so that you don't double up in title and thumbnail. For example, if I was making a video about phasmophobia and I have phasmophobia in the thumbnail, then I don't really need phasmophobia in the title. Now for this video, I'm thinking of calling it How to Make Simple Polished Thumbnails for YouTube, or something along those lines. So that means the thing that I'm going to be pointing to is probably a thumbnail, which is super meta, and I hope that I don't break the internet by doing this. Okay, so we have the picture of ourselves already in, and now we have to decide what the focus of the thumbnail is. The focus of the thumbnail should generally be what the focus of the video is, or it can be some little funny moment from the video. If you're a gamer, it should probably be from the game that you're playing, or if you're a vlogger, maybe some great moment from your video. I'm going to take that meta idea and run with it. So the thing that I'm going to point to is the thumbnail itself, which means we can move on to the next step, getting a background. So when it comes to getting photos to put into your thumbnail, I highly recommend Pexels because all of the photos are really high quality and they're royalty-free, copyright-free, and you can use them no problem. Since my video is just about making thumbnails, I just decided to take a nice fancy house photo because it doesn't really matter. It just looks nice in the background. In order to make myself pop, I'm going to blur the background. Now, if you're using Photoshop, I like using the Gaussian blur, but no matter what app you're using, there's going to be a lot of different ways to blur that background. I blur the background because it makes me pop out more. You can see the difference right now with it and now without it. Okay, so now that we have the background looking all good, let's go ahead and color correct my face. There's all sorts of tutorials about how to balance and, you know, color correct your face. Doesn't matter. Just use what works well for you. It's not super important if you don't have time to do this. Okay, so now that I have my face looking the way that I want it in terms of brightness and color, you can see what it looked like before and after, so it just added a little bit of a touch. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and just kind of touch up my face a little bit, right? Because I have some acne, and I don't always have acne. I don't remove my moles or anything, but like, you know, I don't mind removing my acne. Some people are against doing this type of correction, but I don't mind it, just kind of touching yourself up, because it's almost like putting on makeup without having to put on makeup. So now I'm going to put what I'm pointing to. That also happens at different times in the process for me. But for this one, since I want to go super meta, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to select all my layers and just copy them and paste them. I'm going to merge them together. And this is kind of a funny idea I had from that meta comment. Also, really quick, I want to make a note about picking your backgrounds. It's generally good to pick something with depth, something that adds a lot of like dimension to it, something that goes back. That's just something that I like because it sucks the viewer in a little bit more than if it was just one flat color. Those flat gradients are fine, and sometimes I use them, but I prefer depth. Now, one last little detail that I forgot to add that adds, you know, just helps making it pop, because a lot of these smaller things are what make it pop, is I'm just going to add a drop shadow to myself. And for anybody who doesn't know what a drop shadow is, you can kind of see what it's doing there. If I have it all the way up, it's a huge shadow, but I'm just going to add a little bit of a shadow just to make myself pop even more off the background. All right, so now that I have the thing that I'm pointing to done, I'm gonna go ahead and add some text because I do want a little bit more context. I added the words simple and easy because without those words, I felt like you couldn't really tell exactly what the video was. You still kind of can't, but that's where the title comes in. Your thumbnail does not have to say everything that the video is. It's kind of working hand in hand with your title. So I know this video didn't give you a bunch of specifics on how to make a great thumbnail, but that's the way I intended it. So I'm just going to quickly go over the most important pieces. 1, a well-lit photo. It's easier to darken a photo than it is to light a photo. 2, a nice background that adds depth and add a little blur in there. 3, a singular focus that is easy to understand. And 4, words when necessary, and those words must be very easy to read. Now, I used Photoshop for this tutorial. If you use something else, as long as you stick to those tips, I think you'll be good.